Let us suppose for a moment that, based on the brilliant rebuttal of my esteemed opponent, you now believe the resurrection to be a fact. Let's explore what else you would have to believe. You would have to believe in other things as well, mind you, because if it was just the resurrection, we could just ask Jesus himself. His physical body is still alive after all. Only where is he? Is he living incognito in Israel? Is he in occultation in a cave or a cell somewhere? No, he took off. I mean, he literally took off. He took flight, reached escape velocity, etc., and is now sitting in some celestial location. The belief in the physical ascension of Jesus is as central and constitutional to the belief of the resurrection as the resurrection itself. In defending his God, my opponent claims him to be a disembodied spirit, but that is not in fact his actual belief, as I just showed. The point that I'm making is that if you believe that one miracle is possible, you must believe in all others as well, at least in principle. Even if there was any evidence for the resurrection, and there is not, there still wouldn't be any evidence for the ascension. You can't have one without the other. No scientifically minded, skeptical person would question the resurrection as a historical fact, as I said before, if only it had occurred without the ascension. You could then simply ask Jesus because he's still alive and kicking, as the Bible assures us. Instead, he became the world's first astronaut, unencumbered by the trappings of modern technology. How likely is it that a claim is true and has nothing going for it but logical consistency? Is it possible that the world is but 5 minutes old, created with all memories? Imagine a murder in court. He was seen at the scene by 50 eyewitnesses, 30 of whom know him personally. 5 cameras tape the murder from every angle. His fingerprints are on the gun, etc., etc., etc. He claims that the universe is 5 minutes old, and that therefore he could not possibly have committed the crime. He would undoubtedly be found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, thus adjudicating his claim, the 5-minute hypothesis, to be impossible beyond a reasonable doubt. That is what is meant by reasonable doubt. But maybe my math is wrong, and Dr. Craig's famous probability calculus applies. He says the supernaturalistic probability factor has to be divided by the supernaturalistic probability factor minus the naturalistic probability factor. And how do you arrive at the actual figures? If this was a valid mathematical tool to be employed for miracle claims, let's just apply it to two other miraculous claims as examples. First, the ascension. Let's say that a modern scientist gives the ascension a probability factor of 10 to the power of minus 10. According to Dr. Craig, we now have to divide that by itself. Now it is true for any x non-equals 0 or infinity that the term x divided by x will yield 1. Apparently, this seems a little too pat even for Dr. Craig. So we divide the supernaturalistic probability factor, not simply by the supernaturalistic probability factor, but we subtract from that arbitrarily a much smaller number approaching 0 for the naturalistic probability factor. That's what this formula means. It's really not that hard to see that the first part of the formula that yields 1 really could be left out because it will always yield 1, no matter what the supernaturalistic probability factor is. The naturalistic claim has to approach 0 according to Dr. Craig because we're examining a supernaturalistic claim. Let me repeat that. Since we are examining a supernaturalistic claim, therefore, so goes the argument, the naturalistic claim factor has to approach 0. So naturally, this would yield excellent results, 0.97 or better, when applied to the ascension. Let's take as our second example a supernaturalistic claim made in connection with the ascension. A miracle claim made by no mean source, mind you. The prominent Catholic theologian Leo Allatius was appointed head custodian of the Vatican Library by His Holiness Pope Sixtus VII, theologically argued for the following miracle. The rings around Saturn are in fact the foreskin of Christ. You can see how one could make a very strong theological case for this. Number one, Christ's body physically rose to the heavens. This is dogma. Number two, Christ's body was at some point comprised of his foreskin as well. This is scriptural. 3. Therefore, the foreskin of Christ is part of his body. 4. Therefore, the foreskin must have risen as well. But how could it be the rings around Saturn? Theologically easy to answer. It changed its accidents, but not its substance. Isn't there a better scientific answer? As I write this, 2013, actually, no. Science does not consider Jesus' foreskin a viable hypothesis, but they don't have an answer either. The naturalistic claim is that the rings around Saturn are either the result of 2 or more moons colliding, or some remnant of the early matter nebula that made up the rest of the planet and its moons. How can we determine what to reasonably believe? Surely Dr. Craig's probabilistic calculus can help. We assign to the supernaturalistic claim any probability factor we wish. We divide that by itself less an arbitrary but very small approaching zero probability factor that we assign the naturalistic claims. The result will be 0.97 or 0.98 or whatever else you want it to be. This is not a mathematical proof of anything. If it was true, there'd be no scientific loss at all. Let us look at a lit candle. The physicist might say the candle is lit as a result of chemical and physical processes that I set in motion to light it. If anyone else had done what I did, the same processes and natural laws would have yielded the same results. The theist could claim that no, ordinarily that is what happens, but in some cases it was divine intervention that made the flame appear in the shape of the recently deceased Pope. Since this is an actual claim made about the flames of a bonfire, and there even is a photograph of the Pope-looking flames, we can once again apply the probability calculus. Lo and behold, a 99% chance it's a miracle. This could be applied to any miracle. To defend one is to defend them all. The choice is yours. You can either believe that there's observable cause and effect in the world, or that there is not. If you're still a theist, you have no reason to believe that the universe is 13.7 billion years old, or that evolution has taken place, because it might just as easily have been a miracle. Naturalistic views follow only under the assumption that the laws of nature are not suspendable, but universal. Under these circumstances, a redshift in the galaxy shows that it is moving away. The universe is expanding, and ultimately that there was a Big Bang. If God could intervene whenever he chooses, you have no reason to believe that such is the case. Gravity is not universal. After all, some people can fly. If the Bible says Noah's Ark happened, applying probability calculus shows that opposing scientific views don't change the odds at all. All arguments made for a physical resurrection and ascension can equally be made for any other miracle claim. Since it would be the acme of irrationality to question all of science and all scientific discoveries and all personal discoveries to boot ever made, and since classical theism requires this rejection as a matter of principle, as I have shown, I think that therefore classical theism is the acme of irrationality, and I choose to live in a rational universe. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Stuhl.